Okay, so it's about time. So shall we begin? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session B1, Transformation of Industrial Sectors Through Vertical DX Platform. This panel is designed to discuss how digital platforms have brought about extraordinary transformation to vertical industries and its supply chain in multiple sectors and geographical regions. Today we have guest speakers coming in from Jakarta and Singapore, as well as Tokyo, so it's very regionally widespread. Today we have three very founding guest speakers. First one, Mr. Yasukane Matsumoto, who is founder and CEO of Raksul, sorry. So please welcome him. And second, we have Mr. Pamitra Wineka, who is co-founder and CEO of Tanihub. So welcome. And finally, last but not least, we also have Mr. Yinglan, who is the founding managing partner of Insignia Ventures Partner. So we have a very exciting group of panelists today. Looking forward to meeting you all. So let us dive into the discussion. First, let's take a brief introduction from all of the presenters today. So we'll start with Mr. Matsumoto, followed by Mr. Wineka, and then finally by Mr. I think about 3 minutes each should be sufficient. So please give us a brief introduction. So Mr. Matsumoto.
Hi.
Yes, you need to unmute.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Yasukane Matsumoto, as a founder and CEO of Raksul. I founded the Raksul 12 years ago. Very good. And I'm running a startup in Tokyo. What we do is mainly online linking e-commerce website, e-commerce company. So what's our feature of specific point of our business model is we don't have any printing machine. We have a network, like network with small printers. We are connecting more than 100 small printers, and then what's the problem of the small printer is that the utilization rate is quite low. So we are utilize their idle time and their providing the hosting product are using idle time to small printer. So we would have printing machine or factory, but we are one of the biggest printer in the foreign printer in Japan. So this is our business model, and they're not only our breaking, we are expanding the same business model to the different areas. The different one is the Uber for truck, it's a logistics business. So we cover more than 30,000 truck driver network in Japan, and we are providing such capacity to the company to meet their truck capacity. And also we are providing transportation management system, and it's our hybrid business model over SaaS and the marketplace. So our vision is the data system, data world. So in terms, we have a lot of traditional industry, and this traditional industry is basically built 70 years ago or 150 years ago, and the business system doesn't change well. So we are reinventing the traditional industry by introducing internet. So that is our company. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next, can we have introduction from Mr. Wineka? Please unmute.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. I am Eka, the CEO and co-founder of Tanihub Group. So Tanihub is agriculture e-groceries platform. So what we do in Tanihub Group is we help connect the farmers, the smallholder farmers from all around Indonesia, and provide them access to market as well as access to financing. So as you probably know, like Indonesia itself is an archipelago country with a lot of natural resources. And one of the biggest sectors in Indonesia is the agriculture sector. It actually contributes almost 14% to the Indonesian GDP. So this sector, even though like it has a huge contribution, and it actually employs 1/3 of the nation. It actually is one of the most inefficient sectors, and also there's so many problems in this sector, including all these farmers that are so fragmented that they have to rely on middlemen to be able to sell their produce. So a typical fresh produce will take up to 9 steps, like 9 layers, until it gets to the hands of the customers. So what we do in Tanihub Group is we help build not just the platform for people to order, and not just the platform for the farmers to sell, but also the entire supply chain from farm to table. So every fresh produce that is harvested can be received by the customer within the same day. So from harvest to customer, it's really within 24 hours. We serve B2B and B2C. So we serve a hotel, restaurant, catering, supermarkets, as well as individual customers, our B2C. And on top of that, we also try to improve the livelihood of farmers by giving them access to capital. Because by giving them access to capital, they can buy better seeds, better fertilizers, so their harvest yields increase, as well as like they can make a better, proper planning. And that's a little bit about like Tanihub. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very exciting, very interesting business model. So finally, Mr. Yinglan, can you give us a self-introduction about your business too?
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation from APIF. Certainly an honor to be here, and look forward to the physical event, hopefully sometime soon. I run Insignia Venture Partners, which is a Southeast Asia-focused venture capital fund. We have 2 early-stage venture funds, and as well as a later-stage fund investing in tech companies, primarily in Southeast Asia. Even though we have made our first investment in Japan in a company called Nudge, which is a digital bank in Japan, but I think we're primarily focused in Southeast Asia. Some of our companies include Caro, which is the largest used car marketplace in Southeast Asia, Ajaib, which is the largest stock brokerage in Indonesia, Tonic, which is the digital bank in Philippines. And then a few things for us is that, hey, we have a unicorn club of about 60 plus unicorns, which are great members and investors in our fund that we try to value add to our companies with their insights. And we also recently started this academy where we train people in venture capital, and they become talent for our companies. And sometimes they join our firm as well. So that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you. So today, as you see, we have a very widespread panelists working in printing industry to agriculture, and also coming in from the position of venture capitalists. So I'm sure we'll have very interesting perspective exchanges. So let's now I have some questions for each of you, so that we can further understand your business as well as your view towards how this transformation can be done through the vertical DX platforms. So let me start with Matsumoto-san. So you mentioned in your introduction about the vision of your company, which is a better system, better world. And so, how can you elaborate a bit on this about this concept? How you are aiming or how you vision to change the world by reinventing the legacy industry structure with the power of internet?
Thank you. So I think basically we are operating in Japan, and there are. So what's the difference from Japan and there between difference between Japan and there any other developing country is Japan set it up, build the industrial infrastructure 50 years ago or 80 years ago. And there, so in Indonesia, India, or I think also in Singapore, it's a quite new city, and every system are very, it's basically leveraging the technologies, and there's no inefficient so much, but there are Japanese printing, Japanese logistics system are made already 100 years ago. So there are already huge players, and this a big giant doesn't have an incentive to change. So mainly the very bureaucratic organization system, and there are young people doesn't have a chance to change. So this in terms of business structure, we are so our society or our business our market doesn't change so much. So that's why startup is very important to change. So we are we don't have any legacy assets. So that's why we can imagine what is the best structure of the business, printing business, logistics business in Japan, and so making the new business. So this is what I mean, the beta system, beta world. So current system has a huge inefficiency. So that's why we're gonna reinvent the system itself.
I see. So one of your main huge successes is reinventing the printing industry. So can you tell us a bit about how you reinvented this old bureaucratic printing industry in Japan?
Okay, so let me start why I stepped in our printing industry. So after I graduated university, I joined the American management consulting firm in Japan, and there I engaged several cost-cutting projects and so in 2008, and so we are. We are engaged as many costs like a labor cost, promotion cost, or system development cost, or the electric cost, or communication cost, blah, blah, blah. So, and I found it out that printing was the most inefficient cost. We cut it 33% on average. So I started to have an interest in why the industry was so inefficient, and start to research that. So in the result, two big company, the market size was 6 trillion yen. It's 60 billion US dollars, and half of the market, 30 billion dollars, are occupied by two big giants, and there were 30,000 small printer. So the number of 30,000 is the same or not the almost the same number with a convenience store in Japan. It's too much, and what happened there is two big giants get most of the job, and they use a subcontractor. So 80% of our production power of these two giants came from subcontractors. So there's a huge pyramid structures, and the small printer get a job from a printer. So that's why a huge number of middlemen were existing, and that made their inefficient. So my idea is integrate the small printers and make a virtual huge printing factory and directly connecting this capacity to the end customer, and we can cut the middleman and provide a more efficient printing production to the customer. So this is a structure we really invented.
Wow, you were a real changer of the industry, so it's really exciting. Now, this might be a bit confidential, but do you have any industry in mind that you feel that you can again reinvent the bureaucratic system in Japan? What are like the still very old and that needs? What are the industries that still needs this kind of transformation through the power of internet?
Yeah, after we started our printing industry, 5 years later, we stepped into logistics industry that has the same structure. It's 140 billion US dollars of the total market, and the top 10 big giant has 50% of the market. But there were 60,000 over small fleet companies, and most of job flow are subcontract based. It's a pyramid structure. So that's why we made our network of small fleet companies, and provides the capacity directly to the customer. So that is the next market we addressed, and the third market is the TV commercial. It's so the ad, but not digital advertising. It's a TV advertising, because the TV advertising is a very traditional, and there were no innovations. Even though so the customer cannot measure the efficiency because their Dentsu Hakuto, like that, are huge. The traditional advertising agency didn't invent or make the efficiency better during 50 years. So that's why we reinvent the market for the third. And right now we are addressing the fourth industry, which is IT industry. IT industry sounds very efficient by IT, but is a very analog analog industry. So we are using our technology and improving the efficiency of IT industry better. So I believe that in Japan, we have a huge opportunity to reinvent, improve the efficiency, and the huge a lot of market has inefficient. So a startup has a great chance.
Thank you. Wow, the outlook is very exciting. You have so many industries that you can contribute, and it looks like you'll be very busy for next few years from now. So looking forward how Japanese industries will get transformed. So now let's switch to Mr. Wineka. Your company, Tanihub, is reinventing the fresh produce industry in Indonesia. So can you tell us a bit more how your business is contributing or changing this industry and empowering the small producers?
Okay. So in Tanihub, we actually have three platforms that we run simultaneously. One is Tanifund, which is our peer-to-peer lending platform to fund the farmers. Second is Tanihub, Tanisupply, that does the supply chain, and Tanihub itself does the marketplace e-commerce to help connect the buyers with the produce that is available. So if you see the agriculture sector, you cannot see it only as one piece. So I strongly believe you can't just do funding alone, you can't do supply chain alone, or you can't do just the sales of the e-groceries alone, because the agriculture sector is the reason why it hasn't been very efficient. It hasn't been such a booming industry in Indonesia is because no one has really done it from end to end. And why is it important? Because these are fresh produce. These are perishable goods. These goods will get damaged if not handled or moved fast. Because what we have to do is we have to match the quantity, the quality. We have to match the timing of the harvest, and last is also the pricing. So after matching all four of these, so then if you don't have a good supply chain system, that's number 5. The goods might get damaged or might be late to be sent. So, like for example, if the farmer has exactly the right quantity and also quality, like grade A, but then the request of the hotel or restaurant is grade A tomatoes. But if the supply chain was bad, maybe it arrives like bruised, or it might shrink, or there's a lot of problems in the supply chain side. And this is why we have to see it as a entire process. And this is why in Tanihub Group what we do is we help the forecasting of the demand and supply. So all the farmers also know what is the expected demand of carrots or melons, within the next 1 week, 2 weeks, even up to 4 months. So we help aggregate the demand of the supply as well as the demand of the the supply and demand, and then we match it. So basically there's a lot of forecasting going on. And right now this sector is actually the government has always been supportive towards this sector. So in fact, for next year, the government is dispersing around $4.5 billion for subsidy for for the inputs, for the seeds, fertilizers, and also irrigation system. But the problem is this: the government only sees it as okay, we will give the farmers subsidized inputs so that they can grow more. But the fact is, almost 50% of the produce go to waste. They get spoiled, they get damaged because the farmers either overplant or overgrow, or even they don't have a proper supply chain system, or they don't know how to distribute these goods to the correct customers at the right timing. So this is why for us this is a really great timing to reinvent the fresh produce industry, because the government has been pouring so much funds and also a lot of support on the production side, and we just need to build a good supply chain system as well as the distribution network to our B2B and B2C customers to help flow all these goods from the farmer to the customer.
Thank you. You mentioned about the forecasting. Now, I think the forecasting entails some data behind it, but can you explain or tell us a bit more about if there is any feedback loop of this data accumulation and how that enhances both your service as well as the empowering the players in the value chain?
Okay, sure. Of course, feedback loop, and also we implement machine learning on it, so that basically we have to be able to help the farmers not just be monotonous on okay, just for example, we try to match the farmers based on the region, based on the land altitude, on what is the good produce to also grow. So for example, they initially only grow tomatoes, But because they can also grow chili peppers, or let's say they can also grow string beans or whatever, based on their area, and the demand is also close by. So we actually create like a learning platform for them. It's very simple. It's just basically like a YouTube, a mini version of YouTube, but only to teach the farmers on cultivating different kind of produce, different kind of fresh vegetables or fruits. And this will help the farmer, from over supplying, because the typical farmer here, they will plant based on what their neighbor is planting. So if I was if I wanted to know like what to plant, I would see what my neighbor is planting, and then I will plant the same, because they all want to fit in the same truck, like the distribution truck, all together. Meanwhile, like what we're trying to do here is we actually collect the data on like what is the typical demand around that area. And then after that, we give the farmer an idea like, okay, besides tomato, you can also plant cabbages, broccoli. And if you want to learn how to do it, this is how you do it. Because for sure, in 3 months, in 5 months, you will have a certain demand on these commodities. So this is to maximize their income. Because when they, if they only plant one commodity, when they harvest, the prices drop. And this is why, in Indonesia, like a lot of farmers are still poor, because, when they start selling, it's always very low price, because everyone's harvesting the same goods. So like the feedback on like the data, and we collect the data, our sales team keep inputting like the data, as well as like from the orders in the app itself. So we know like what is the expected demand from every region. So, and it also minimizes the traveling time for the produce. So minimize the carbon footprint, one, and also the logistics cost.
Great.
Yeah.
I mean, for those, individual farmers, digitization, I think they understand its necessity, but it's one of the things that's most difficult. So I really think a service like yours would be very beneficial for them. Now, looking into future, what do you see as necessities or possibilities? Are you still going to stay in the agriculture, or do you see any transformation still necessary in the industry, or do you feel your service can go outside of agriculture or even outside of Indonesia? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so right now we are working mostly with groups of farmers and co-ops. But what we're developing right now is more on the upstream side. So we are actually creating like the new collection points where so more and more smallholder farmers we can reach more and more smallholder farmers, because like we realize that if we just rely on the group, and only if like the small hubs are still far from the farm, it will cause a lot of problems for the really small farmers to sell their produce, because they will need to sell it to some smaller aggregator first before going to our hub. So what we're doing in the future is actually what we're actually doing right now is creating these small hubs. So the farmer, even they just harvest one basket of fruit, they can still drop it off, and then there will be like a collection vehicle to collect, to go around and collect every single, like every single pickup of all fresh produce that all the smallholder farmers produce. So this would be something that we're planning to do. As for expansion, we are actually trying to expand to do Indonesia first for the next 1.5 years probably, and maybe go international in 2023 probably. Yeah, I think that would, because Indonesia itself is quite large, and there's so many things to do here. It's actually still the biggest market and the biggest producer for fresh produce, as well as the biggest importer in Southeast Asia for food. So surprisingly, Indonesia still imports a lot of fresh produce, because we don't we cannot fulfill our own national demand on it. So there's still a lot of potential in Indonesia, in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So now let's ask Mr. Yinglan. So your company is venture capitalist. So what trend do you see in the digital startups serving traditional industries and transforming its processes?
Yeah, sure. I think we covered printing with and also agriculture. We have two experts here. So I'll talk about something else, which is something that affects our daily lives, which is houses and cars. So we have investments in both of these verticals, which have done quite well. I mean, for the car space, we have an investment in this company called Caro, as I mentioned earlier. It's the largest used car marketplace in Southeast Asia, and he has done a variety of things now. He has also done leasing. There's a whole financing business. You could literally drive your used car to the shop, and they do a 180-point check, and you can drive away with a new car and walk away with financing and insurance. So that's in the car space where technology has really made transaction very simple. You can even buy cars on live streaming and contactless. So that's I think that's one of the manifestation of digitization in the traditional sector. Another one is in the house vertical, right? It used to be the case where I need to go to a house, to view a house, and visit many houses before I finally decide on one. So we have a company called Pinhome, Pinhome Indonesia, where you can literally view many houses on the app. And you can just zoom in on the one you want. You may still need to go visit, but you can do it at your leisure with a smart lock. The house opens automatically, and you can view the house at your leisure without agent. And then they also make money through mortgages. And the other interesting thing is that they also buy I would say older houses, renovate it, and then sell it at a premium, which is there's a lot of demand, especially in urban Indonesia. So I think that's just two examples of how technology and digitization has transformed very traditional industries like used cars and property selling.
So Matsumoto-san a few minutes ago was giving us an explanation of the situation in Japan, how the traditional industry is quite bureaucratic and so on. Do you find the situation to be similar outside of Japan, or is the situation of the traditional industries, for example, in Singapore, is it quite different? How do you have any views on that? Is traditional industries also bureaucratic and still needs transformation in Singapore as well?
Oh, is this meant for Matsumoto-san or for me? Sorry.
For you. Do you find any difference compared to like the situation in Japan, or do you find the situation to be quite similar?
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. I think the beauty of Singapore is that it's quite a open country. So we are exposed to influence from east and the west. And the country is generally quite receptive to new ideas. I think one big trend we are seeing is that traditional conglomerates, right? They are handing over the founders are handing over to their younger sons who have been Western educated mostly, and are bringing some of their learnings to transform some of their own industries. And I think they also try to collaborate with the traditional players in a way that creates new businesses. That's one trend. I think the classic example is the company that just went public recently called Grab, right? Anthony Tan was from the son of Tan Chong Motors, but he found a way to digitize the ride-hailing industry, and it's done very well. So that's one trend we are starting to see. We're also starting to see collaboration with more established multinationals, like in the fintech space with open finance. You have banks working with fintech infrastructure companies like Brancas, for example, and Very Hubs to enable user data for fintechs. or in our case, we have a company called Ajaib, which is the largest stock brokerage in Indonesia. They acquired a 40-year-old brokerage to have a license to launch a stock trading app. So these are some examples of more new age companies working with traditional companies in Southeast Asia.
Nice. Do you, as the venture capitalist, try to collaborate or connect the startups and the traditional companies, or it just happens naturally?
We do a lot of that. I think first we need to find out what the traditional companies or the partners want, what is the future lie ahead for them, right? So in the banking space, we've done a lot of this, where some of our limited partners are banks, and then we try to match them with the right ecosystem portfolio companies, right? So that's one. I think the other thing is working with their strengths. So what traditional industry players may lack in speed, but they have distribution and scale. So some of our smaller companies also work with them to tap on their infrastructure to get to scale and go to market faster. But I think what is the beauty, as Matsumoto-san has mentioned earlier, is the ability of small companies to move swiftly and with agility. So that's the beauty of some of our smaller companies. They can really react to consumer feedback and be able to serve the customer swifter in accordance with the changing trend of the industry.
I'm sure you've seen numbers of projects where the small startups and the traditional companies have made alignment. But did you notice anything that needs to be considered? Like, is there any careful things or like any tips for either for the traditional companies or for the startups that they should be careful about when working together?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think one of the things that usually happen is that, hey, when a young growing company is growing fast, we often get inbound approaches from traditional players to try to invest in them, and maybe just partner is not enough. They want to have some ownership, and we typically advise that, hey, in these cases, we advise them to think like a Singapore or Switzerland, to stay neutral and not be tied to one tree. I think a small token investment is fine, but not to have your shareholding being too influenced by one strategic, because you want to stay independent and have the freedom of degree of freedom to operate. So that's one. That's for the startup. I think for bigger conglomerates, I think the great case study is Google Capital, right? So it is a venture arm of Google, but they are able to operate freely as well, and they don't have to be confined to the regimen of the big conglomerate. I think that is the one successful case study which allows corporate to innovate and work with partners in a nimble way.
Now, speaking about this vertical DX platform, which is the main topic of today's session, do you find traditional companies is easier to adopt this system by working together with the startups, or can they do it themselves?
It's possible. It's usually faster if they work with startups. I think we have one case study, which is this company called Shipper, which is the tech-enabled logistic platform in Indonesia, which we seeded in 2017, and they have now grown to a fairly large scale. So some of their early customers were actually traditional merchants, right? And they were using very traditional third-party logistic players to do their fulfillment. But I think working with Shipper in the early days both allowed Shipper to fine-tune their business model, but also allowed them to rethink their efficiency. As Matsumoto-san has mentioned, there's a lot of inefficiency in developing markets, which can be reduced. And I think that was a win-win proposition. So that helped Shipper grow very fast, and it also helped to reduce the cost of merchants who are trying to ship goods in Indonesia. So I think that was a win-win. So I think both parties got that what they wanted. One, reduced their cost. The other one really took advantage of the mass scale of some of these merchants. So I think that's one case study.
Nice. Thank you for the insights. Now, we only have 10 more minutes. So now let's open up the question to the floor. So we have chat system going on. So if the audience have any questions to ask our panelists, all or one or Please designate who you want to ask a question to as well. If you could write on the chat, I'll take your question and ask them to our panelists. So if you have any questions, or maybe you can also raise your hand, I heard, but actually APIF members, can you check if there is a hands up from the participants and allow them to speak, give the questions if they have any? Okay. So hands up. Okay. Is there any question on chat? Okay. So meanwhile, we're asking for the questions to come up. I have a questions to all three of you regarding this vertical digital platforms. So vertical digital platforms, we believe it will serve to empower all of the industry players, and also as a way to tap into larger scale market access, especially for the smaller individual players. Can you give us some examples of how small players can benefit from the vertical digital platforms, and more importantly, who do you think or where this will lead to in the future? So let's start from Matsumoto-san.
I believe that technology always empower individuals and small one, not a big one. So the philosophy of internet is decentralizations and empower small individuals. So, for example, in Raksul, what's happened is you are a small printer, you are a small freight company. 30 years before 30 years ago or 40 years ago, small company doesn't have a power. And there's what they can do is just be a service contractor. But right now, what they can do is they can get a job from internet directly. So using our platform, and they can improve their efficiency, production efficiency, and they're also they can improve their workflows. We provide our software to improve their efficiency. So it means that even though you're a small player, you can get their power, the same quality or same power with a large corporation with their huge capex investment. So I think our internet, so our small player can get a huge benefit by using their platform, like a taxi Uber driver. They can get their money and they can get their job without belonging to the large corporation, and they can get time. So I believe that the digital platform, every industrial digital platform empower small supplier, small individual, the customer. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Wineka, so we heard a lot about the benefit that the farmer may have by using your platform in Indonesia. Do you see other stakeholders, particularly the small players, may be benefiting from your system in agriculture in Indonesia?
Yes, actually, I 100% agree with Matsumoto-san on like all the small players now are on the same level playing field as like the large and everyone's all together on the same level because of the digital transformation that's going on. For us, the farmers as well as producers, everyone can enjoy better pricing and better information, access to information of like prices, as well as like where is the market and everything else. But also in our ecosystem, the SMEs, like the hotel, restaurant, caterings, the small businesses. There's a lot of warung in Indonesia, like the small mom and pop shops. They all previously did not have like a competitive advantage because they buy in retail. They can only buy from the market or from some other resellers at a high price because they buy in small quantity. And now they can buy it at a bulk price, even though they buy it in small quantities. And more businesses, they don't need bigger kitchens, they don't need bigger storage, because right now they can order small quantities. Like, there's a funny characteristic of like Indonesian small businesses is that they don't have proper storage. So rather than because they don't have money, right? So rather than investing in this infrastructure of storage and cold room or even refrigerators, they can just order every day, make an order every day through Tanihub, and then we deliver small portions, and it's just enough for them to prepare the dishes for every day in their catering or in their small restaurant. So it saves their money. It maximizes space for production as well as for like seats. So they have more customers. So, the effect of actually opening everything through to this digital transformation helps many people.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Yinglan, I asked this question earlier to Matsumoto-san, but I want to ask it to you too. Do you see any industry where the vertical DX platform would really benefit? Do you have any industry where you would pitch in your own money to invest and make the transformation happen?
Yeah, I think Wineka mentioned about agriculture, so that I think is one. The other one that is also fairly inefficient, at least in Indonesia, is agro, which is fisheries and shrimp, which is a big industry in Indonesia, and then we are seeing many players try to disrupt that. I think in the areas of fintech, it's actually been a flurry of activity trying to disintermediate platforms. So I won't talk about that. But I think the other interesting thing is with COVID, healthcare and education, which has traditionally been more offline. I think you see a rapid digitization online as well. So a couple of our companies, Pamitra in Indonesia, at Micro in Vietnam, all adapting to the digitization wave during COVID. And I think these are unstoppable trend of many of our industry verticals that has been transformed during COVID that wouldn't go back to the way it operated before.
Thank you. Thank you very much, three of you, for very insightful talks. I think myself, as well as the participants, were able to see the beauty of the Vertical DX platform and how much opportunities that's out there. I really wish best of luck to all of you, and wish that your businesses further prosper. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for joining. And for the participants, thank you very much for participating in our session. So see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.